Hey everyone, thanks for joining me for another episode on the-travelcollective.com, where I talk to travelers, photographers, explorers, and I'm excited to have a conversation today with a photographer, Dave Wyman, who I've known for many years. He was probably, I think, the first photography workshop or photography tour, as you might call it. I know on his website he calls them outings, so we'll talk about that in the conversation. And we went to Yosemite in winter, so it was quite an experience. I'm excited to welcome Dave and chat about all things photography and what catch up. So, welcome, Dave.
Thanks for having me, April. So good to see you.
Yeah, it's good to see you. So, I always like to ask this question like, when you first kind of, photography picked up the camera, when you kind of fell in love with it, so to speak, if you kind of remember that experience.
Well, my mom gave me a camera when I was 7, and she really liked photography. She was an amateur, and gave me that little brownie that I still have. It's on my bookshelf off to the side here. Uh, was I really into photography? I was into taking pictures of my classmates, some photos on vacations we took, but it wasn't really until I guess high school that I really got interested in photography in a sort of journalistic way. I shot for the yearbook, sold photographs of my fellow track team members, basketball players. Uh, Still wasn't totally into it, but I had my own dark room, and I'm going to say my shots were, for the most part, not particularly exciting. I mean, yeah, jumping up, putting, stuffing a ball into the basket, yeah. But I traveled to the Death Valley with friends. Say the pictures were pretty documentary, not particularly interesting. They're fun to look at, you know, 60 years later. I am 77.
Yeah, that's hard to
Uh,
believe.
yeah, it is. It
And
is.
photography has really changed so much, even in
Yeah,
my
no more dark
lifetime.
room. No more
Yeah.
dark room. It's light room. But then I went away to college in Northern California, and I had a ball, and I really got into taking travel photos. I like to say making photos. You know, I don't say take a photo. I'll say make a photo. Like Ansel Adams pioneered that word. Um, you don't take cars. You make cars if you're a manufacturer. So I feel kind of the same way. And became interested in nature and travel photography, and I had a travel photography column for the college newspaper. And eventually got back to LA and joined the Sierra Club and really got into backpacking and mountaineering and ski touring. And I always had my camera with me. I became more and more interested. And then I had the dream job. I'm going to mention I dropped out of law school. I'm not putting down lawyers. It just wasn't for me. Uh, so what I really liked was climbing mountains and making photographs and riding my bike. And by happenstance, I got a dream job at the University of Southern California.
Oh.
Don't tell people at UCLA I went to school with, but yeah, the job was as the adventure travel coordinator.
Oh,
So my
wow.
job was to take students, staff, and faculty on all sorts of outdoor trips, backpacking, ski touring, rock climbing, canoeing, kayaking, yeah, the gamut, car camping. So at some point, I came across a brochure. I used to get all these travel brochures, uh, and it was a little brochure about taking mountaineering classes in the Sierra Nevada. But one of the classes wasn't about climbing mountains; it was about photographing the mountains
Oh,
with
nice.
photographer Galen Rowell, another great photographer, Gordon Wiltsey. And I took that with the idea of I will run my own photo workshops. And that just supercharged my photography. And at some point, I started submitting photos for articles. I wrote articles, ended up with some books, had a great program. And I still take people on photo trips. I've been long gone from USC, but I still carry on the photography side of life.
Yeah, I think that is amazing. Was there ever a moment, because you've authored books, you've led photography tours, you've had your photos published. Was there any moment where you kind of feel like I've arrived, I can now call myself a professional photographer?
Well, I had been organizing these photo workshops at USC for a while, and I thought I need some more credibility. That's when I started submitting articles, and I tried my hand at one for outdoor photographer, and
Oh,
it was about
wow.
photographing a ghost town. And so I had slides. This is back in the day when we had transparencies. If you don't know what that is, folks, look it up. But
I actually have
I
some.
there you go. So I submitted an article. I wrote it, had the pictures, and I got a nice, probably letter back. I don't think it was email back then, from the editor saying, "Hey, I really like your photographs, but you gave us a where is it story. We need a how-to story." And he essentially outlined what he wanted in the way of lengthy paragraphs discussing each photo, telephoto effect, wide angle, and I was kind of frustrated because it was using a typewriter.
Oh, yeah.
Uh, but I got a Mac. I got one of those early Macintosh computers. And it took me a few weeks to knock it out. And he published it. And that was my first really big sale. I've been in a whole bunch of other magazines after that. And yeah, it was great. But that was the first big one, uh, definitely.
Yeah, and I I don't know if outdoor photographers actually still publishing actual because we all of us that were into landscape photography, I think that was kind of like the Bible. You'd go get the magazine or
Yeah,
subscribe to it and you're right, there were these columns and how-tos and exciting locations that you might not have heard of and
right. It's still around, I think. I don't know if it's in print anymore. It's online at least. But that, and then I think my second big sale was to Outside Magazine and their gallery section. They misidentified what I showed. It was a sea lion, and they put it down as a harbor seal. But no
oh
matter, got in there. They still owe me because Outside Magazine got a hold of me and said, "Dave, we love that photo we published some years ago. We're going to include that in the 100 best photographs in the first 15 years of Outside." And I was really excited. And
yeah,
nothing
that's
happened.
an
I didn't hear back from them. So finally, I don't know if I called or wrote the editor, and I got a response which was, "Oh, we're so sorry. We forgot to tell you. We only had money to publish 93. We cut seven. Yours was one of them." So,
no.
yeah.
No, that's terrible. Right. You were so
Yeah.
excited. I mean, top 100, I mean, as many photos as a lot of these publications would print. That's an
Yeah.
honor. I mean,
Yeah. But they dishonored me. So, but it's hanging in my house.
oh, good.
It's a nice print. So, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize all the money that went into photography years ago. You know, you'd go buy your film, then you'd get this if you were doing slide film. Then you'd have to decide which ones to keep, and if you wanted to print it, I mean, it's the whole process.
Absolutely. Yeah. I still have a lot of slides. I keep telling myself I have to go faster, go through them, keep throwing them away, but it's going to be it'll outlive me. My kids can toss the rest of them, but I haven't gotten
Yeah, or donate them to hopefully to maybe an
to.
organization, like I don't know, some sort of place where they can, and that's the thing is identifying maybe which ones might have historical value. I know earlier today we were talking about the devastating fires that California has experienced. I mean, there's going to be whole neighborhoods that have just changed forever, historic landmarks that are gone.
Right, right. Yeah, difficult to believe. I live in LA and definitely experienced the smoke, the fire engines. There was not only Pacific Palisades and Eaton Canyon, but even Hollywood had a little fire
Yeah,
that scared a lot of people. And I'm not too far away from that, but yeah, if you're in LA, it's affected everybody.
right. So tell us about the books, because I think Backroads of North Carolina or Northern California and Southern California, both editions, it's more than just, say, a travel guide. It's more than a photo guide. It's kind of borders the best of both worlds a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, it's the pictorial travel guide genre. And what do you do? I mean, I could have just put down pretty pictures. And well, first of all, let me say that how did I get that book? I mean, a lot of
Yeah.
photographers would like to get a book and they never get a book. Now you can self-publish, but back then that wasn't very feasible. So I was sending some prints off to some friends of mine who've been bugging me for years to send them some of my prints. And the guy at the shop who was boxing them up for me said, "Dave, do you have a book?" I said, "No, I've got a bunch of magazine articles." But he said, "Let me put you in touch with a guy who mails his books off from here, and he's an XLA photographer. So we ended up chatting on the phone. I was kind of surprised. I got a phone call from this guy, and
Wow.
I told him what I'd done, and he said, "I'm going to recommend you to my publisher." And that's how I got my first book. So Voyager Press back in Minnesota at the time, and the editor asked me to send some photographs and give him some submission ideas. And so I sent in photographs for 19 locations, and
Wow.
they picked the 19th one. And of all those locations, that was the only one I didn't really have very many pictures of.
Oh, it figures, right?
So, and they said, we don't care. When we talked on the phone, we don't care. We'll give you a year to do it.
Oh,
So,
nice.
yeah, I spent a lot of money traveling up to Northern California. That book was pretty successful. I think it was in print for many years.
Yeah, and
And
it's
yeah,
still
it was great.
available. It's an amazing book, and it
Oh,
has
thank you. Thank you.
a lot of history. And I think a lot of those places, again, I always talk about how as landscape photographers, sometimes we get into this lull of like, oh, Yosemite will always be there, that waterfall will always, but things change, landscapes
They do. They
change.
do. But so getting back to, what you would include in a book like that. You mentioned it, history. You just can't say, go here and see this. You need some context. So I think I did a good job of that. And interestingly, let me see if I can find another book here. Some of my chapters are reprinted in the book by the publisher. You can't see that neither can I. It's the
Oh, hold it right there. There
right
it is.
about their Great American West
Oh,
Backroads. So they grabbed all their authors and photographers going back for decades, including me, and asked if we'd resubmit some of our chapters. So
oh,
I did, and I
nice.
have to say, not that much had changed with the chapters I picked. Maybe because it's Backroads. I don't know, but most of the people were still alive that I interviewed for the Northern California book. Most of the roads are about the same, and there hasn't been that much construction there, so pretty much the same. I had to do a little bit of updating, but yeah,
That's good
that
though
was
that
kind of
some
easy
of
for me.
those,
Yeah.
yeah,
I just had to make a bunch of phone calls. I didn't have to really travel back anywhere
right.
to
Oh,
make
that's
new photos
nice.
because nothing had changed, essentially.
That's kind of amazing because I know some areas in Central California, it's been a many years since I've been back up to Fresno and along what was 99, a lot of the old neon signs. I think some of those have gone by the
Oh
wayside.
yeah, and there's so much construction, so many housing developments now and shopping centers. It's way different along the major routes for sure, but some of the old routes still look about the same. So
That's good to hear. So
anyway, yeah,
tell
I really liked that book. It was my first book,
yeah,
and
I
I
think
like
it's
most of
really.
them. I've got four now, but
And one
yeah, it
of
was.
them's on, I like as we said earlier, one of them's on sale for over $1,000 on
Yeah, if
Amazon.
you want to buy my book on nature photography, I'm not sure how that works with the book business, but I guess if you get down to one copy, because the rest are gone, uh,
I guess you
it'll
can
do
name your
that.
price. Yeah.
I don't think they're going to get it.
Well, you never know. I mean, it's too bad it's not coming to you, that
I have several copies. If people want them, I'll let them go for $800. How's that?
there you go, right. Well, I'll include your contact information so if people want a copy, you'll even sign it and autograph
Sure.
it, so it'll be worth more than the $1,000 unsigned copy. So you sent me some amazing photos earlier, and I was trying to find a way, and let me see if I can screen share a couple of them. Let me go to share so you can tell us a little bit about them. Let's see if this one will show up. All right, we seeing that one? This one,
Okay. Whoa, you picked an interesting one to
this
start.
one's really interesting, actually. To me, it looks like an alien.
Yeah. So I made this photo, I believe, last October on a trip I conducted along with someone named Ken Rockwell. He's got a big presence on the internet. He's brings in people on these trips often. I like to say he gets them and they come back for me. But Ken and I were up leading this group in at a remote part spur range of mountains off the Sierra Nevada mountains at an old mining site, gold mining site.
Oh,
And
wow.
this is the upside bumper attached to a car lying on the ground. The roof smashed in, so it's low to the ground, and it's the reflection of the person standing next to me.
Wow.
Boy, I just had him hold his hands up, and it's around October. I think I published this on Halloween. Uh, yeah, that's all it is. In fact, if you look at the picture you can see that little circle to the left. You can see
Yeah.
me actually photographing the person.
Yeah, I see that.
Double photo. So, uh, yeah, two reflections.
But that's
And,
what I think is so amazing is just you seeing things that are different than the person standing next to you.
right. And well, that's part of the fun of going out with the group. Let me say, it's the idea that when you're with a group of photographers, it's sort of a force multiplier because lots of people see different things and will point it out. And you get some great ideas on how to make photos in the future. I mean, a lot of people never see reflections. I've done it for so long, looking for them. I see them all over the place. So
Right.
everybody who walked by this, they didn't see it. I had to call people over at some point, some of them, and show them this. People are
Yeah,
always
it's
kind of
just
amazed. I mean, I've stood next to people and pointed out a reflection, say the train yard in Barstow, and there's a reflection in the windows of a car.
oh wow.
And so the person next to me looked at it. Yeah, okay. We got back that night, and that night we shared some photos, and I showed that one. And that photographer said, "Wow, I was standing right next to you. You pointed it out. You didn't really see it." Well, he saw the whole scene rather than just the reflection. And by just trimming it down and just including the frame of the windows on the side of the car, made a bigger impact.
Right.
It takes practice. It takes practice essentially to see these things.
Yeah, and I think it takes practice to kind of train your eye a little bit to look for more of the details, to slow down actually and not look at the whole of what's in front of you, but to those little, it's often those little details, which let me pull up one of your other photos that you sent me because it kind of goes back to that whole idea of the details. Let me find, and this will take me just a second. Well, this one's a good one too, so let me share this one. Oops, don't want that there. We want this. I hope you can see that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's probably on there twice.
I only see it once.
Oh,
It's a
good.
bird in front of a waterfall. Is that what?
Yeah, it looks like it might have been taken in Yosemite because I know how much you love Yosemite.
Yeah, that's Yosemite Falls, right? And that's that idea of not showing everything, standing back and trying to get top to bottom, but zeroing in on something.
Mm-hmm.
And at particular times of day, depending on the time of the year, there's a rainbow in Yosemite Falls. Even at night, sometimes you get these moonbows. Yeah, I was lucky. This is fortuitous with the raven flying through it, but yeah, you don't always have to include everything. And actually, on the trips I conduct, I'll often mention that when you start out, just as you said, you see everything and you take everything. And then you're looking at the photo later, you or your friends, and you're thinking, is that a dog or a chair? What was I trying to photograph there? And so I think is if you go on a group photo trip or your own trip, your eye begins to sort of narrow the view as you keep shooting. Because when you first started on a trip, you want to take in the landscape in totality, but bit by bit, you start to narrow your focus down, and you get a
Mm-hmm.
shot like this.
Yeah, I think this is stunning. And again, we're so used to seeing those, and it's good to get the classic image of the entire waterfall, but then start looking for the interesting details or the way the light is hitting the rocks or whatever it is that your eye is drawn to.
Right.
Yeah, this one's gorgeous. And I think right now it's February when we're recording this, and I know the Firefall, you've probably been there many
I've
times.
been there. I've been there several times. Got to see it several times. Yeah, it's getting crowded though. The internet is ruining everything.
I know, I know, I know. I was just gonna say that. It's not like the good old days where where your locations, and it I kind of have a problem a little bit with that, is that these amazing spots, for me it's like New England, and it's like private properties that made beautiful landscapes the way the farm was, we were all being respectful. They, now they've gotten put up on the internet, and thousands of
Yeah,
people on
yeah.
any given Saturday, the whole hillside, and now people have, it's impacting these places, unfortunately.
Have you been to Mesa Arch in Canyonlands?
No, I haven't.
Well, I went there years ago, film days, and we got there early in the morning for sunrise, and the sun comes up over the mountains to the east, and it lights up the underside of this beautiful arch. It isn't that big; it looks large when you see the photo without the contextual elements like people that are underneath it. And it turns out that there was nobody there except us because the accommodations are about 45 miles away. So you have to make a big drive. You have to get super early in the morning to get there. It's better in the winter because the sun comes up in the right spot at that point. Um, but when I went back some years ago, I don't know, I'm going to say like 2015 maybe, there were so many people you couldn't actually photograph the arch.
Oh, you
Just
couldn't?
way,
Oh,
way too many people.
wow.
Yeah. Hang on one second because my phone just turned itself on.
Oh, okay. Yeah. All these devices now that talk and
I don't know
listen
how it
to
did
us.
that, but it did. All right. Yeah. So the internet has ruined a lot of places for people. But that's
Yeah.
why I think some of the trips I conduct are fun because we don't go to all of the iconic places. We pick places that other people might not think about, but have a lot of potential. And there are
Right.
photographs everywhere, everywhere, even in the upside down bumper of a car that's been shot
Yes.
up at a
Yes.
remote mine.
I even like the title of, and I like how you've used the word outings to describe your photography. I don't know. It's like, it's not a workshop, it's not a tour, because it is, everybody kind of has their own style as far as leading. And there's,
Yeah, it's kind of a hybrid, right? Like you were talking about the
yeah,
book, because we're not going to sit down and have lectures. We don't have intensive Photoshop sessions after hours. Uh, we like to say we'll get you to the right place at the right time for some interesting pictures, but all the time, everywhere is the right time, as it turns out. But yeah, that's kind of what we do. And then of course, you do learn because you're looking at other people's photos. I'm wandering around, Ken's wandering around. I've got a bunch of other people that have helped me over the years, all looking at your photos, giving suggestions. And then in the evening, we're sitting around having dinner. Now you can all look at your iPhones or tablets or whatever. Back in the day for a while, I was bringing projectors and then yeah, my computer screen, or put it on a TV. Now we just pull out our tablets and phones and look at photos.
right. Which is actually nice. I do think for learning, it's a faster learning curve than it was back, like when I started, as I held up these chromes when I started. It's like you took the picture and then you'd have to wait to get your chrome back. And then if you didn't take really good notes maybe of what settings you used, or there was not really a feedback, like what settings did I use to take that photo, and if I wanted to improve for the next time. Whereas now with digital, it just seems like,
Right. And even not even at dinner, but while you're making photos, like I'll walk around and make photos myself. So will Ken or these other people I go out with that help, and we'll show people our pictures,
yes,
and they get some ideas right off the bat from that.
right.
So yeah, I'm more focused on having people learn by doing. When I started out doing this years and years ago at USC, we had some lecture sessions for people, and we divided it into advanced and beginning. If you already know it, you don't need to hear it. If you don't know it, your eyes glaze over as you hear about human
Right.
speed and f-stops. So we cut that out, and yeah, just have a good time out making photographs. But it's definitely a learning experience. Yeah.
Oh, I definitely think so. And I think for I like to the welcoming atmosphere that I felt from the get-go, because besides your workshop outing, done some others. And sometimes, as a new photographer, a new person to a camera, it's all, like you said, it's all like the f-stops and the settings, and you're trying to figure it all out. It can feel intimidating, you're like scared, but with you, it felt very welcoming and like, just keep seeing, just keep doing, and you're going to improve and find your,
Right, right.
and just sharing that joy, because I think it is a lifelong joy taking photos, making
Yeah.
photos.
And the cameras are so advanced today. You don't need tripods often. You don't need to know about f-stops or shutter speeds. You can put it all in program or automatic. Uh, should you know about shutter speeds and f-stops? Yes, you should, especially if you're using a real camera compared to say a smartphone, because that will come in handy. Possibly, you might enjoy what happens when you change the size of the lens opening or change the shutter speed. Something you can't do that easily with all-in-one cameras that really don't have that many controls, like your
Right.
phone. Although the modern phones are actually really great, but they're limited in some ways.
Yeah, they are limited, which
Yeah.
I wanted to show. You had an amazing portrait. It wasn't of you. It was, and I didn't get them all moved, so we'll see how I can show everyone. This
Oh yeah.
gentleman,
Yeah.
and I bet you may have taken this just out on one of your outings. I don't know if you did it in studio. It looks in studio, but
No, I took that last a week ago Friday.
oh, really?
That was on
Oh,
my last Route 66 trip. It's a trip we do from Barstow, California, out in the desert, east about 70 miles over the course of 2 days, 2.5 days. And this was he was at a junkyard, Daniel, and he was a potential customer for a car part, and he was engaged in conversation with the owner of the place. And a couple of us walked up and asked if we could get some photos of him while they were talking. And Daniel was quite the orator for Jesus. So he spent about 15 minutes on that topic and was very passionate. And I think that showed up in the photograph.
yeah, it
Yeah.
did.
It looks like it's in the studio, but that's with the iPhone with its amazing portrait mode where you can black out the background.
Wow.
Doesn't always work with dark subjects, and he is a black man. But luckily enough, there was enough light hitting him that you can see him against that dark background.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that is what's incredible. And, just getting comfortable, I think that is a skill that you probably share on your outings, is the asking people if it's okay. Because technically, you should ask if it's okay to take someone's photo. I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
I'll tell you, I see a lot of I've looked at a lot of YouTube videos on street photography.
Yes.
Most of the videos I've seen that show the photographs of people photographing street photography today, they're boring. They're
Yeah.
just people walking down the street. You look at someone like Vivian Mayer from the
Yes.
40s and 50s and 60s, the undiscovered street photographer who's incredible. Somebody like that. Um, there are other great street photographers, but I think that they show people doing things. Now, she didn't ask, but nobody really noticed. She had a camera. I'm going to show you one of my cameras. She had this camera. This is my mom's 1956. Man, I am old. My mom's 1956 Rolleiflex. So it's got two lenses. You look down into it. This is the viewing lens.
Right.
So if a person sneezed or blinked or something, you could take it again because you saw what happened. This is actually the taking lens down on the bottom.
Oh,
Yeah, it takes 12 shots. It's 2.25 inches by 2.25 inches. So it's like a giant sensor. You make
right.
huge enlargements. And people don't notice you when you're looking down into the camera, just like nobody notices an iPhone much today or any other Samsung cell phone camera. People just tended not to realize you were making a photo with these things. So she has incredible pictures, candid photos of people doing stuff.
Yes.
And
Yes,
it's
she
really
does.
hard to get those kinds of photographs because most people are kind of shy about bugging other people. So you tend to sneak them.
Right.
And I think that I personally don't like sneaking them for the most part. I prefer engaging somebody for a little bit, trying to get some rapport quickly. And then one way to do it is I used to take a page of slides with me. So I used to take groups to the Taos Pueblo, various Indian pueblos in the Southwest, and I'd have a page of slides, like 20 pictures. There's little transparencies in this page that lets you hold them against the light and
Yeah.
see little pictures. And I'd have people pictures. And so I get to talking to some Native American. Usually you're in their shop, they want to sell you something, or maybe you just meet them outside while you're walking around. And I don't say, can I make your photo? I just let them look. Now I do that on my phone. I'll
Right.
pull up my phone and show people what I've got without asking. They want to be in your phone
Yeah.
or in your camera. They want to be in your camera. So sometimes they'd ask me, aren't you going to ask me for my photo? So yeah, it's a great way to do it. Have some photos with you that you've made of people. And if you can strike up a conversation, you've got that ability, pull out your phone and show them what you've got. The other thing, this camera. So
Yes.
I started carrying this with me again, maybe 2 years ago now. And the first time I put it on, it was on a strap around my neck. And I go out once a week with a couple of friends when we make photos. We've been doing this for years. So we're pretty good now at just walking up to people and asking them for photos. But we try the same approach to be respectful and ask. But people will see me with that around my neck and they'll say, "Excuse me, is that a camera?"
Oh,
And then
really?
you're opening. Or they'll say, "Is that a Rolleiflex?" Because they know, or maybe they think it's a Mamiya or a Hasselblad or something.
Yeah.
So it's an opening right there. I don't even have to put film in it. We got all the pictures we want of people because so often we get stopped. People want to know what I'm got on around my neck.
Yeah.
Yeah. So little tricks like that. You might wear an interesting shirt or a hat with some words on it, something to pique people's interest in who you are.
Yeah. Oh, that's fabulous.
It's
Can
a
you
good way.
still get film for the Rolleiflex?
Oh, absolutely. Film has made a big comeback, apparently. Yeah, film companies are selling a lot of film these days. I mean, a lot is a teeny amount compared to what it was, but nonetheless, yeah, you can get all kinds of film. You can still get film for a Polaroid camera, which I've started using. My daughter gave me this thing for my birthday not that long ago.
Oh,
I'm
that's cool.
not super impressed with the pictures. You have to be creative with your photography, and I'm not really particularly good at it yet, but it's fun to use. Yeah, you can still get Polaroid film. Polaroid went out of business, but it's been reconstituted. So they make one incredible camera and a bunch of very inexpensive cameras. And you can pick up the one I just showed you for $14 on eBay.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
great. Yeah, and I
it
think
worked.
photo processing's come back a little too. I mean, there for a while, there was that dip
Yeah.
where everyone was selling everything. In fact, I probably do have some unexposed rolls of slide film in my
Yeah.
refrigerator that need to be processed. And so I think there are some labs that have come back for people to
Oh,
get.
yeah. Yeah. We have that ability here in LA to do that. We've got Sammy's camera, and you can mail your film off for development. You can go online. But definitely, we stopped in one day at my little friends and I on our little photo walk in Hollywood, and there's a house on I think it's Sunset Boulevard. It's the Kodak house. It's
Oh,
literally
wow.
it's a house on a corner. It's all these trees around it. You almost wouldn't see it. And if you go inside, they sell film,
Oh my
lots of
gosh.
movie film. But they were telling us, hey, you can get all the film you want here now. There's a big demand for it. Yeah,
That's good to hear. Yeah, because it does gives people more creative options, I think. I think people are realizing that digital's great, there's a lot you can do with it, but there's also a lot of retro stuff that can only be happen with
yeah, yeah.
actual film.
And if you want to make friends, you don't mind spending a couple bucks on a shot, you can take your Polaroid camera, take a picture of somebody and hand it to them. For a while, I had a little mini printer that I plugged into my phone, uh, or I think you could do it wirelessly, and I print out a picture I made of somebody, the
Oh,
size of a
nice.
business card. But people are
Right.
so impressed because they don't see prints and they don't get them handed to them, by some random stranger very often.
Yeah.
So it's a really good way to meet people and make friends. And by the
And
way, like you, I have friends going back 20, 25 years now, 30 years. from these photo trips since I started in about 1983. Still know some of the people on my trips. Get together with them.
That is
Yeah.
great. So, what are your favorite outings? Because I know you kind of limit now the outings that you do want
Yeah.
to lead.
Well, I'm 77, so I'm not sure that I'm limited by the physical condition I'm in. I'm still in reasonably good shape, um, but I don't have to do it anymore. So
Right.
I kind of pick and choose. And I've done so many trips over the years that now I enjoy just staying home with my cat, frankly. uh, yeah, I mean, I visit my daughter in New Jersey. I do get outside once in a while, but I'm a pretty relaxed dude now. So, yeah, the trips that I run now are to the east side of the Sierra Nevada in October, around the 20th, because that's a good time for the amazing fall colors we actually do have in California. Incredible scenery. There's a giant desert lake, ghost towns, old mine sites. Um, and then I have a trip
I
to,
think this one you took
yeah,
probably.
yeah.
And this
Uh,
one's unique too, because it looks like it's swirling. So I wasn't sure if this was a
yeah, I'll tell you
fish
how I did
eye
that.
or
Okay.
what.
So I did it with this, okay, my phone. And I'm going to say, let me digress for a bit before I get back to the trips I
Yes.
run. And that's that I started out running these trips long ago, going for straight shots, documentary shots. I had a wide angle lens, a teeny f-stop, which gives you a lot of everything's in focus from near to far, and catching the scene as you think the eye saw it. And over time, I've really become much more loose in my idea of what makes a good photograph. And I've also gotten away from Photoshop to perfect everything. That's not to say I don't use apps, though. I have some apps on. Maybe you'll post something at the end of this when you show it. Some of my favorite apps that have various, let's say, filters that add
Okay.
colors, subtract colors, or move colors around. Yeah, that I'm willing to experiment with in a way I wasn't before. I do have a fisheye lens, but that photo was made as a straight shot, and then I used an app called Hipstamatic that has a digital uh, fisheye
Oh,
option
wow.
filter, if you want to call it that. And so there's also a shot I think I sent you of a pine cone.
Yes.
Everything's in focus pretty much, and it's got that round, swirly, crazy fisheye effect. I'm willing to experiment with those filters now in ways I wasn't before, or just the apps themselves you can play around with. And I think you want to learn about composition, the rules of composition, and how to use it, the speed on the shutter, and also exposure. But then you can disregard that if you know all that, and your mind is sort of freed, and you can do what you want. You can break the rules when you know them, and you can go beyond them.
Yeah.
So yeah, my favorite trips. So the east side of the Sierra Nevada in October. And then generally, sometime in the spring, we head to the central coast of California. The ocean, beaches, strange sea creatures washed up on shore, the coastal mountains that come down, uh, old cars left abandoned, empty lots, things like that. People, elephant seals.
Yes.
Yeah, a huge number of subjects to photograph up there. And my other trip is as I mentioned before, Route 66, Barstow, California. And people think of Barstow as in Barstow. What's in
Right.
Barstow?
Right.
Like,
Exactly.
what's in the desert?
Right. Yeah.
And so the subtitle of this trip is The Art of Photographing Nothing. And I know my partner, Ken, isn't crazy about that title, but, you
Oh,
know,
I love it.
people think
Actually,
about
I
going on
love
that
it.
trip. Yeah. And actually, Ken, I don't know if he's right about this, but we were talking after the trip, and he said, Dave, we get a lot of engineers, we get a lot of people that have disposable income that go on these trips. I'm going to say, if you check out my trips, they're not expensive. That's sort
No,
of
they're
my
not.
idea. Yeah,
Yeah.
because I don't really have to work anymore. I don't care. I'd rather have people get a chance to having a good time. So he said, we get a lot of people with a lot of money. He said, this trip we had a lot of just normal blue collar people. We had a fireman, we had a policeman, we had a whole bunch of people that had normal jobs. Um, yeah, I guess I mean, he was right, actually. It was a little different.
But that's great though, in a way, to
Well, it was, but I think
expose
part of it was the
people.
subject because I think somebody with a lot of money would think, oh, I don't want to go to Barstow. Why would
Right,
I want to stay in a
exactly.
motel in Barstow?
What am I
And
gonna eat?
right,
Exactly.
right. And, uh, and when you say, well, let's go to Yosemite and you can make your own accommodations so you can stay in the lovely Yosemite Lodge with us. Yeah, that's more appealing to people that don't think they want to stay in a Motel 6 type of place. We stayed in a nice motel, but yeah, so I like that trip a lot though. And people do get their eyes open. And, at the end of the trip, somebody came up to me and said, Dave, I really appreciate the trip. Thanks for putting it on. He said, I got to see in different ways. I just didn't look at things before and I wanted to see differently. And, you guys really helped me see differently this trip. So we had people saying, oh, we're coming back.
Oh, I bet. I
Yeah,
bet.
I think a third of the group were repeats anyway. So
Right. Right.
get a
Plus,
lot of repeat
because
people.
as you mentioned, you can come now with, I'm sure you get people that are like, oh, I don't have a quote real camera. I have a cell phone, or I mean, there's so many amazing point and shoots. There for a while,
Yeah,
I know
yeah,
you were bicycling so much, you always talked about you wanted a pocket camera, so it had to fit in your pocket. Yes.
yeah. This is a Sony HX99.
Oh, wow.
Has a equivalent 24 to 720 millimeter lens.
Oh my
Now
God.
you need a tripod if there's not much light, which kind of why would you carry the camera then if that's the case? But for daytime shooting, it's incredible. Yeah, it's really sharp, and when it's bright, you can use a fast shutter speed and hold the camera still even at 720 millimeters. Get some absolutely incredible shots. I don't take it with me that often, but when I do, I mean it's an adjunct to the way you see. Super
Hmm.
telephoto. I mean, I've also got a telephoto that's
Yeah,
gigantic.
right.
It's 500 millimeters f4.5, must weigh about 20 pounds, and but I rarely use that, and I'd rather use this little dinky one.
Yeah.
But I have to say, I'm really impressed with my iPhone. Um, yeah, but I really like the Barstow trip. And I want to tell you about one person I met. I'm going to try to see if you can see this. Let me try. There he is. That's
Oh, yes.
okay. So this man, uh, I met him at the Baghdad Cafe, and that is an iconic stop on Route 66. There's the movie, The
Yes.
Baghdad Cafe. I recommend it. Just get through the first 15 minutes. Uh, it's a good movie. And so I was the owner of the Baghdad Cafe changed the name because they filmed the movie there from the Sidewinder to the Baghdad Cafe. And I was having a hamburger with our group, and that man that I showed you walked up to me, just out of the blue, and he said, "You know, I was educated at the best schools. I'm not crazy. Just because I live in the desert doesn't mean I'm nuts. I went to wonderful schools in Switzerland because my father was the Swiss ambassador to Switzerland prior to World War II." And I'm thinking, really?
Yeah,
He was
exactly.
old.
Right.
He's probably in that picture younger than I am now, but he was old. And I thought, oh, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. It's
And he
possible.
said, yeah. And he said, and then of course, World War II came and we had to go home to America. But I have to say, the highlight of my life was flying over the White House with Einstein and President Roosevelt in a flying saucer.
Oh,
All right, so he was fabulous. He would just wander up to people in the motel in the Baghdad Cafe and just tell these stories. He had just
wow.
endless stories, terrifying stories about his life, not nice ones. Very strange guy, and eventually he ended up in a convalescent hospital in
Oh,
Barstow.
oh
So we had
no.
a trip. I took the group out there. We went in to see him, and some people had been on that trip before. Other people had not. weren't sure what to expect. And I think they had him on probably some sort of drugs or something because he was way more relaxed than usual.
Oh, yes.
Uh, but he did spin some stories about being the editor of all the newspapers in San Francisco, et cetera. And then I was thinking, okay, we've heard a couple of stories. It's time to go. I mean, he was glad to see us.
Right.
And he said, uh, before you go, I want to say something. He said, you think you're here for photography. Uh, And let me tell you why you're really here. And I thought, oh, he might say something profound.
Right,
And then he
right.
seemed to lose it, though. He said, a diary. I'm thinking a diary. He said, a diary, it's just a recitation you write down of your daily events. You just put down what happened during the day. Okay. But, a journal is something personal, your thoughts about things that you write down. And I remember thinking, oh, okay, we left. But when
Right.
we were driving towards our next destination, I thought, I think he nailed photography and life itself. There's a couple of broad categories. One is looking at the outward world and just experiencing it, not really thinking about it during your job or whatever it is you're going to do. The other way is the more introspective look. That's your journal, right? And your
Right.
photographs are like that. You can take a
Yes.
documentary photo, like we went to this junkyard last week, and you could just get some shots of junk in the yard. But you could also move close and get pictures of, 100 car doors stacked up together
Oh,
in the road.
yeah.
So I think you really nailed why we were there. The two purposes, I think we always go on these trips. The point I try to make every trip is that we're there to connect with something greater than ourselves. Yeah, we're there to make nice pictures, pretty pictures to show friends and show our family and to look at ourselves. But I think there's another level, which is we want to connect with something bigger than ourselves. I'm not particularly religious, but I can't explain why, things exist. And we're part of that. But
Yes.
paradoxically, we're separate. And so, an artist has a canvas and paintbrushes, and a sculptor has a marble statue he makes with or she with a hammer and chisel. And photographers have for their canvas, we have the sensor in our camera or film, and then we have focal lengths, whether prime lenses or zooms or just your camera for our brushes. And yeah, we can paint a scene that looks exactly like reality, or we can go way beyond that and plug in ourselves to the picture. Yeah, I think that's more meaningful, whatever that means.
Right.
Has more bite to it when you take a picture of it somehow, has more of you in it than just the scene that's out there.
Yeah. Oh, I agree. And
And
th-
I
and
think,
and that taps into too, like you can get that just postcard view, so to speak, but if you take time and slow down, you're gonna see something that the person standing next to you didn't even catch, whether, like
right,
you pointed out, it's the reflection or the way the mist is hitting and the bird right there, just that little teeny spot there. And the guy next to you may not
no,
even
don't
notice
be
it.
greedy though. Let him know or her know,
Right. Exactly.
because there are some photographers I know that won't. They'll be off somewhere. They won't share what they saw with anybody. It's like, oh no, this is mine, all
Yeah,
mine.
exactly. Exactly. Yeah, I wanted to show you had this little, and it's so detailed, but it just draws you in. Well, first of all, there was this one that you most definitely wanted to share.
Oh yeah, I wanted to mention that one. If you can
That
get that up on
gold
the screen,
leaf one.
yeah.
So go ahead and tell us.
Oh, see if you can call it up for real on there.
Let
I
me
think you've
see.
got it in one of those little
Yeah, I
blogs.
probably did. It's the gold leaf. I'll have to probably share it afterwards because I downloaded a
Okay.
bunch.
Well, it's sort of an abstract, but it's water tumbling over a little dam. It's water coming out of the Cascade Range
Oh, wow.
into a giant swimming pool in Chico, California. And so it's an old wooden dam, and a bunch of leaves had gotten stuck, and probably I don't know pieces of splinters on the top of the dam because the thing was slowly being eaten away. And I made that photo of these leaves sort of teetering on the edge. And I think I titled that photograph "On the Brink."
Yeah. And it
So
almost looks like too, there's like almost like it looks like an eye right above the
you can
edge.
see things in the picture. It's
Yes.
abstract, so it's sort of hard to tell. Yeah, it looks like an eye.
Yeah.
You can kind of see wood grain if you look carefully. It's an odd picture. So I made the shot, and then I was looking at it the next day and thinking about it. And I was going through some personal issues at the time. And when I made the photo, it impressed me, in some way. And it's a detail shot. There's the whole dam is huge, and there's a giant municipal swimming pool that's
Wow.
fed by the waters of the Cascade Range. So there were people out there swimming and whatever, and this was just a little slice of what was going on. And the next day, I was looking at the photo, and I was posting it online, and I thought, it isn't just a picture of leaves stuck on top of a dam. It kind of is a metaphor for all of us that we all eventually have to sort of submit our will to some greater power, death
Yes,
or whatever,
yes,
not just death, but
right.
whatever it is that you have to deal with your job, making a living, dealing with problems that come up in your life. Good things too, but I mean, you have to sometimes have bad things that happen. If you didn't, life would be boring. It's
Right.
the way it is. So I just thought that was a sort of stand-in for the idea that we all, at some point, no matter how tight we hang on, have to let go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's true. And that pictures seem to suggest that to me, that those little leaves were going to disappear, but for the moment, they were hanging in there. And yeah, and it gave me, I don't know, a little glimmer into my own situation at the time. So
Right.
it's one of my favorite photos. And yeah,
And I think that's why sometimes too, I tell people our expectation when we go out to take photographs, or if we're going to go, say, do the Eastern Sierras in autumn, we're like, oh, we've looked at other people's photos. They're all around us. We see images, we're inspired by them, both amazing photos. And we want to get that. And so sometimes in that challenge to get that and we don't get it, we get disappointed. So I always say, like, take all your photos and sometimes just set them aside. I kind of It's kind of
well,
like
I agree
like
totally. Yeah,
laying down your wine, let it age and then bring it back a year or 2 years later. You're going to see things that you didn't see the first look through.
yeah, yeah. And also, I've kept gazillions of photos, my digital photos, and I'll go back years and pull something out and think of a different way to show it, to crop it, or use one of these filters, or maybe actually I do have. I don't use Photoshop. I mean, I have it, but I rarely use it unless it's really important. But I have a program called On One Photo,
Oh,
and it's again, it's another program with lots of filters, but it does all sorts of things. It has amazing cloud generation, for example, noise reduction. It's like Photoshop light, maybe I'd say, but um, yeah, I'll go back and use that on a photo that's 15, 20 years old, come up with something different.
right.
I'm not wiping the photo out. I'm adding something or subtracting something. Yeah, so I totally agree with you. You can keep your photos and maybe bring them back and give them a new life and a new
Right.
meaning to you.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm thinking I did that with there's the town of Chico has a signature architectural feature, and it's Bidwell Mansion. The founder of the town in the 1860s, I think, came out to California. Before that, he came out during the gold rush, actually, and created the town of Chico. And he had built this beautiful mansion, and his very interesting wife, Annie, lived there with him. And the mansion was torched by an arsonist a
Oh
couple
no.
months ago. Yeah, and it's going to cost millions. They don't want to rebuild this thing. I had pictures from 15 years ago that I just kept, and I pulled them up and I put them online for people to look at on the Chico Facebook page.
Right.
And people really liked them. And I used this online software to enhance some clouds that were there that I couldn't capture, originally with the camera that I had at the time. There's only so much
Oh
bright and dark
yeah.
and show in a picture, so I could kind of build up what was actually there. Yeah, you can do that. You can bring things back, change things, and have a purpose for them. So I'm with you on that. Don't throw your photos away.
Yeah. Don't. Yeah, there's no reason to.
Storage is cheap now, so relatively cheap.
Right, exactly, exactly. I always it's like the first time I got my dad a digital camera, it finally clicked, because when you come from like the days of the slide film and the dollar of how much it cost to buy the film and the whole process, you tend to hold back, and it's like all of a sudden you with the digital you realize, oh, I can try something, and if I don't like it, if I screw it up, I'll just delete it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's
You have to
very
delete two,
freeing.
otherwise you're overwhelmed. But
Right,
don't
right,
need them all.
right. So talk to me about, everyone always wants to know what's in your camera bag, what kind of gear
Oh,
you have.
oh
And I
man.
know that's probably changed for you over the years, but I know you mentioned some gear, some apps you want to share. So let's hear a
Okay.
little bit
Well,
about that.
I should pull down my camera bag. But what do I carry in my camera bag? So I carry when I go out with a group or just myself. Okay, when I go out by myself, I'll take this, like my weekly photo walk somewhere around LA. So it's got a nice telephoto. It's a dinky
Yeah.
little camera. It's a Sony A6000. They've got several models of this camera. Really sharp. And this is a equivalent 75 to 300 millimeter lens. So not the largest f-stop, but today's cameras, you can shoot high ISOs and you get nice shots. So I take that with me. And then, yeah, I'm taking this thing with me. Okay. And I've started carrying this. My camera bag's starting to get heavy. It's a backpack right
Oh,
here.
yeah.
So that's 3 and 4. But sometimes they only go out with this. Okay. Depends. And one of the other guys in my group, a guy that I've known since junior high school, he's a professional architectural photographer. And he was carrying lots of gear when we got started doing this 9 years ago. And on occasion, he's just brought his phone. He's got all kinds of fancy cameras, but for a casual walk around town, sometimes we just take our phones with us. But that's what I like to take. I want a telephoto lens on my real camera. I use
Right.
my phone as a wide angle camera, and then I'll throw in some crazy camera like the Polaroid. But and I try to get that Rolleiflex around my neck just to attract people.
Yeah. I like
So
that.
when I go on a trip, though, I've got an attachment that lets me put my phone on a tripod.
Oh, nice.
Today's cameras give you unbelievable night shots. It's absolutely stunning what you can do now with a phone on a tripod for a 30-second exposure at f1.4. It's amazing. So then I got a tripod that I'll take with me. I've got all kinds of tripods, but I have a nice carbon tripod. I have a 1960s tripod I like to take to Route 66 sometimes, big, heavy metal aluminum one. So I carry a little multi-tool that has a little screwdriver and various wrenches and things on it to Allen wrenches to tighten things. And I've got a tiny pair of foldable glasses
Oh,
just in
wow.
case I don't bring in a pairs of glasses with me and I lose them or they break them. I have one pocket's filled with a whole bunch of batteries from my real camera. Generally bring a couple of spare batteries that actually attach to the back of my phone.
Oh, that's smart.
Yeah, yeah. And you can get like a very inexpensive external big battery and run a wire, but these just actually clamp onto the back of my phone. But yeah, if you're out there for a long time and you're not near a power source, it's good to sometimes have a battery that'll give you, double the charge. Uh, and then I've got a blower brush, a big blower brush thing, it blows and brushes your sensor, and then I've got, let's see, I generally want to take a macro lens, a real macro lens. So this little camera, it's a Sony. I still have a full frame Nikon that I don't use very often, but I got a lot of Nikon lenses. And most of them with an attachment that goes between the lens and the camera. You can use your Nikon lenses.
Oh,
So I'll take a 200 millimeter macro lens, Nikon, that I'll sometimes, they'll be in my camera bag when I'm out on a trip
right.
or real macro shots. And then I have actually, and this is not generally used by people, but you can buy what they call them plus lenses. They're little screw-on filters, only what they're magnifying glasses. And so, glass. And so my 200 millimeter lens, you put that on the end of it and you get super close to something. You can put it on your telephoto lens and get really close to a subject.
I think they're almost the size of a filter, and I think
They're just a filter. They're just a basic
yeah,
filter you screw onto your camera.
and I
And
think you
actually,
were the one that actually back on
what?
the yeah, I think way back for on the Yosemite trip, you taught me about them, and they're very inexpensive.
You
So
can still
even
get them
back
online.
then,
Absolutely.
yeah,
eBay. Yeah. I don't, a lot of camera stores don't carry them anymore, but eBay does.
no, right, eBay does, right,
Yeah. And they're great. You don't have to carry a big honk and,
Yeah.
macro lens. You just put it on your telephoto and bingo. Now, what you can do is when you buy filters, like I'll buy filters that are sort of for the largest lens I have, the biggest lens,
Right.
and then I'll buy these step down rings. So you can actually screw the step down ring into, say, you have a 62 millimeter lens opening on this camera,
Right.
but you buy one that's 72, and then you just put your 72 on this converter ring and screw it in. And you don't have to buy multiple filters for different lenses. Just buy them.
That's nice. Yeah.
So yeah, filters. So I take a polarizer with me. Almost never use it, but I take a polarizing filter. I have a lens that will darken the picture significantly, so you can use very long exposures. It's on the expensive side. It's a variable neutral density filter, and that allows you to close down the light from almost nothing up to sheer blackness. And you can do that to photograph, say, water. You want to really cream out water, you can do that. There's an eclipse, very inexpensively, B&H camera. You can get filters that'll just slip over your lens. They're not
Oh,
perfect,
wow.
but you want to ever go chase eclipses, just get one of these, $5 little filters you slip over the front of your lens, and you don't screw them on. You just put it together. It's made out of cardboard with a little
Oh,
filter.
wow.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
That is
Uh,
amazing.
yeah, yeah. I think actually I sent you one photo, a strange photo
With the
with like the
eclipse?
sun or something in it. Yeah, it was an eclipse photo.
I think it
Um,
was. I'll have to put those in the notes too.
yeah, that gets. I'll send you some information about that one. That was a double exposure shot.
And it's
Uh,
with the barn, I think.
yeah, yeah. There's the barn, and you can see the eclipse above it there, more or less. There's
Yes.
some crazy lines coming out. Yeah. Uh, so occasionally I'll carry that, but basically the polarizer, the neutral density filter, the neutral density filter. I've also got one that's a graduated neutral density filter. So half of it up on the top, approximately, is dark, and it kind of feathers out to a normal size, normal piece of clear glass. You screw that on, and then if it's very bright at the top of the picture, but the bottom's in the shade,
Right.
you put this on. And now the thing is, you're stuck with where the line is, right? But in general, you can kind of come back with an okay picture. The other kind is where you have an adapter and you put in big square filters. These were the rage for a while. And then you can raise it up or down and set that dividing line between light and dark where you want. But if you want to equalize really dark areas with bright areas, yeah, a graduated neutral density is the way to go. With today's digital cameras, do you need that? I almost never pull mine out, but
I was gonna say with the digital cameras, yeah, it's just another thing to have in your
it's another
bag.
thing to haul around. I barely ever take it out, but sometimes, need the extra help.
Yeah.
Um, eh, and let's see, what else have I got in that bag? Well, like I said, I carry a 200 millimeter lens. We've got all kinds of lenses, fisheye lenses, macro lenses, wide angle lenses. But in general, I try to limit what I'm bringing. Now, and if you're on a trip and let's say you've got a car, you
Yeah.
can take anything you want. I recommend people take everything. What the heck? Just make sure it's
Yeah.
insured. Hide it in your car when you leave. But but I don't carry everything when I'm out of the car.
Right.
I might say, oh, I should have brought the macro lens. There's some incredible little sea creatures here that are washed up on shore. All right, I don't get that picture. But it's fun to have all this stuff because you can rotate it, but don't carry
Right.
everything. And we always warn people about that on the trips we do because people will just put a big backpack on with all their stuff and they can't walk very far.
No, they can't. No, then
Yeah.
you're limited by how far you can
Yeah. And you're tired. You
wander.
don't want to change
Yeah.
lenses anyway at that point. So I think it's better to try to travel light. Take
I
it all with
agree.
you and enjoy, if you want to, enjoy using all your stuff. But you don't have to use it all at one time. You don't have to carry
Right.
it at one time. You know,
That's the beauty in a way of these cell phones now. Unfortunately, it's made it so
you know,
easy just to have that. But you did mention, because the iPhones do, they take some amazing photos. And you mentioned you had some apps that you like that probably work with the
Okay,
iPhone.
yeah, I'll give you a couple. So I may have to look at them on my phone, but number one, Hipstamatic. Hipstamatic came out years ago. I used it for a while. I put it away. And then I'm in a Zoom photo group once a week. And one
Yeah.
of the people started using Hipstamatic. I said, "Oh yeah, I like that app. I just haven't used it in a long time." Well, her pictures were phenomenal. She's a really great photographer, with or without the app. I started using Hipstamatic again. And what does it do? It's got all these filters, and it's relatively inexpensive. You can buy what they call lenses that give the picture a certain look, and you can buy film for it. And it has an analog look. So you get a little camera on your
Oh.
phone, and you see these lenses. You flip your finger across and pick different
Oh,
lenses. You
okay.
can pick different film by doing this way. It's a little complicated at first, but they give you some prearranged filters, but then you can choose your own lens and your own film. And then, of course, they actually have a built-in editing function, so you can lighten and darken and crop and do that. And they have a set of flash guns. You have little pictures of different kinds of flash guns that have some different effects to warm it up.
Oh,
So
wow.
what does it do? It adds colors. It gives a very surrealistic look in some of the films you can get in lenses. Um, in fact, I did send you some of the photos that I didn't identify them as such, but definitely used Hipstamatic on. Uh,
Interesting.
yeah, so I can really highly recommend that. If you want to go beyond just straight documentary photography, if you're looking for the journal entry. Now it's
Right.
canned because somebody else created it for you, but you're allowed to manipulate it a little or a lot once you've got it, or look at it as an idea and then go on to some other app and do it yourself separately. So I really like Hipstamatic, and they have classic and Hipstamatic. I'm a big fan of the classic version. So they'll I'm not sure what it costs to actually get in initially, but like the lenses, you can buy a set of lenses and it's $9 for a pack of three lenses and three films. And that gives you a lot of choices because you can mix them all up.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Over time, I've accumulated a whole bunch of these films, and some of them have borders, some of them don't. They're black and white, they have crazy colors, there are subtle changes, but it's a lot of fun to play with. And then let's see, what's another? Oh, I can totally recommend Snapseed.
Snapseed.
Snapseed. All right, now a lot of the function. I have an iPhone, and they keep improving the iPhone. So one of the new features on the photo app for the iPhone is the cleanup tool. So you say there's a smudge from your lens, you had some dirt on there, didn't realize it. Just roll your finger around the smudge when you're in cleanup mode, and it gets rid of it. Um, yeah, so that's a good feature, but Snapseed has a ton of features. So it has retro looks where it gives a kind of a Polaroid look or an old timey look.
Right.
It has all the traditional things like brightness, contrast, ambiance lifts the midtones up and brightens them up and leaving everything else alone. It's got contrast and saturation, and you just roll your finger back and forth. There's all these modes, and you kind of have to learn them, but you learn them
Right.
one at a time. And then you've got amazing control over your photograph with Snapseed. It's free. It's from Google. They do upgrade it once in a while, and it's just got all these wonderful features, including a healing tool, you know, contrast. You can
Wow.
up the definition, as they call it. It kind of outlines the edges,
Right.
sharpens the picture, drama mode,
Oh,
kind of,
wow.
yeah, it's portrait mode. And they actually, with Snapseed, if you have a headshot like we have right now with us,
Yeah.
it can enlarge the pupils of your eye, of your subject, widen the smile or give them a frown. It can turn the head one way or the other, lift it back and forth. You don't want to overdo it, otherwise it gets into a caricature. But subtle things like that, you can put a little more catchlight in the eye,
Right.
smooth out your cheeks. There's got all sorts of modes. It's really an incredible app, and I totally recommend it to anybody. Another one that one's free for $15 a year. There's Touch Retouch,
Touch
and that's for your
retouch.
phone or your tablet. And what does that do? It has multi functions, but essentially it erases things, including
Oh.
mesh fences. Now, it's
Right.
not
I was
perfect,
just
but if you have a mesh fence, it will do a pretty good job, especially if you're shooting straight on, of getting rid of the fence and recreating what's behind the mesh fence. I'm not sure how it works, but it's pretty good. But people, it'll erase backgrounds. Pretty good at $15 a year.
Yeah, that
Um,
is
you
pretty
can't spend all your
affordable.
money on all these apps, obviously.
No, right.
That's why Snapseed is such a bargain. It's free, but Snapseed is definitely an app to get. Everybody, you can't miss with that. It has a fantastic double exposure mode.
Oh, wow.
So I didn't send it to you, but I have a picture that I made in Colorado at Independence Pass, which is about 13,000 feet. And it was a silhouette of people with dark clouds behind them.
Oh, wow.
And then, so I did the same thing. I kept that picture. It wasn't particularly super. And I went to conduct one of my Yosemite trips, and I was the passenger. Ken Rockwell was driving. And I got a shot of beautiful El Capitan, that huge granite
Yes.
cliff out the window, front window of the car. And I just did it for fun. It wasn't anything just
Yeah.
special. But as we were driving in, I thought, I wonder if I could combine it with that shot of Independence Pass with the little tiny humans at the bottom of the photo and all these clouds. So yeah, so what I have is this incredible dark sky because you can stick them together with these apps and then erase part of it.
Wow.
Basically,
Yeah.
clouds over El Capitan, but it's surrounded by these swirling dark massive clouds, and then these little tiny humans are silhouetted in half dome. I'm sorry, El Capitan. And yeah, it's an affecting picture. A lot of people like it when I show it. And yeah, you can do that with Snapseed. So possibilities are just amazing. Is there anything else? Let's see if I have one more I can recommend. There's one other one. Let's see. Oh, Picasso. I can recommend Picasso, Becasso. So Picasso gives your photographs a painterly look. It's hard to explain it, but it can give it an oil painting look, pencil
Oh,
drawing, but it's got
right.
500 different ways of making your photos look, not like a photo so much as like a painting. If you want that artistic look, and it'll do it in a light touch or with a heavy touch. I use it once in a while, and yeah, it's a lot of fun to play around with Picasso,
Yeah.
like Picasso, Picasso.
Picasso.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah, that's amazing.
I think those are probably the ones I'd recommend. Um, of course, you got Photoshop Express on your phone. You've got Lightroom Light on your phone. There's all kinds of wonderful apps you can use, but those are probably my favorite. Oh, there's another one. This one's another kind of arty one. Distressed F, like Frank, X plus. Uh,
FX plus.
Distressed FX plus. So it
Okay.
has all sorts of essentially backgrounds to put in your pictures, cloud effects,
Oh, wow.
arty, very arty. And then it'll apply it to the whole picture, but you get an eraser tool, so you just put in whatever you want. Abstract backgrounds, all sorts of things. But it also has birds, white birds and black birds. And people never know that your ravens flying around. And it gives you a whole bunch of them. So it might be 25 or 30 that you have in a group, two, three. They just give you a whole bunch of choices of silhouetted raven-like birds.
Oh
You
my
can
goodness.
vary the size.
Yeah.
I'll get a real raven shot, like that
Yeah,
waterfall.
right.
That was a real raven, but now I can add them in. Like there's an app for that now. There's an app for putting birds in front of your waterfall or anything else.
Yeah.
That's a cool one to have.
Yeah, it's just there's so many things. The photography is an art. I mean, it just continues to evolve, and that's
It
why.
is it is an art. It's true. It's true. And I think I've gone through all my favorite apps for you there that I would recommend you get. There's so many more. I have
Oh,
tons of them. I generally use the ones I just mentioned. Uh,
right.
yeah. I'd say foremost, maybe Snapseed does a lot. And there is a learning curve because there is so much, but once you get the hang of it, that you just usually slide your fingers back and forth, you'll figure it out and endless fun with that. Absolutely.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
Touch, retouch, excellent. Yeah, the built-in apps are really good now too. So, yeah, and Hipstamatic. If you want, it looks like a photo. It isn't. It isn't a. It isn't an app that makes it look like a painting.
Yeah.
It gives it that sense if you've got a cold and you have an altered sense of personality.
Right. Yeah,
That's
exactly.
what it does. And you
I
can
love
do
that.
it a lot or a little. That's what's so great about it.
Right.
A lot of the lenses and films don't change that much. A lot of them do. A lot of them change a lot of it. And yeah, it does give you just a different way of seeing reality.
Right.
What does it matter? People might say, "Oh, come on, it didn't look like that," but that's what I felt, and that's what
Right.
drew out of me. Yeah.
Exactly. Right. Exactly.
There's a picture I sent you of a tufa tower, which is a strange calcium carbonate
Oh, yes.
um, tower of rock, basically, that rises out of Mono Lake in the desert in California. And I've got a shot where it's kind of greenish on the sides of this tufa tower. In the middle is lit up, and I have kind of a starburst out of what looks like a mouth of a dog or something. Is that what I saw exactly? No, but that's what I kind of felt. I was
That's what
focused
you
on the
felt.
incredible starburst in this strange, crazy tufa tower. Tufa means tower, apparently, in Latin. So I guess it's tower, tower. Uh,
Yeah, you
yeah.
must have sent that one previously. I'll have to look for
Oh,
that
maybe I
one.
did. Maybe I did. Or I'll send it to you. But yeah, so
Or
it
maybe,
doesn't
unless it
have to
was
look
this.
like reality. Yeah, that one right there. Can't
Yeah.
quite see that. But yeah, you can see that it's actually darker on the edges, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And so there's this app, Hipstamatic, does that in many, many different ways. And that one was perfect for what I wanted to show, which was this sunrise shot, incredible sunrise shot. And the glory is all on the Tufa Tower.
Right. Well, that's what these apps kind of allow us to do. It allows us to complete that idea that we might have had in our head of what we want it to be, which, we could
Yeah,
do when
yeah,
we had Photoshop or some of these other tools. But now it's really opened up to, like you said, combining things that we saw, like a flock of ravens versus one or two.
right, right. I think now you can tell Photoshop, put in a flock of ravens and it'll do it. But that's not as much fun as selecting them yourself and putting it in. So I've kind
Right.
of gotten away from the super complex apps and programs.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's giving part of the control to somebody else's vision, but you incorporate it into your own. You know that what I didn't give you any examples, but I like making photographs of artistic things in an artistic way, and that's
Right.
just kind of what's happening. You're just using an idea, an art form they give you, and adding it to your own picture to
Yeah.
whatever extent you want.
Right. So are there still images or places that you have yet that you want to personally go to? Places that you haven't explored that interest you?
Well, I am kind of a stay-at-home guy. As I said, I'd like to go back, and I'm thinking about going back, getting a group together to go back to Taos and northern New Mexico. Been there many times, and I haven't been back now since I think 9 years. I really like that area. Um, yeah, um,
That's a fascinating area. I've only
it
really
is.
spent a little bit of time there.
It's the people, it's the landscape, it's the
Yeah.
architecture, it's the culture. And it's a mixture of Hispanic, of Native American and Anglo cultures. And yeah, it's everyone gets along. It's terrific. And I went to Italy in 2014 and 2018 with my brother to ride our bikes and make photos. I'd love to go back to Italy, certain areas, both to ride my bike, some challenging rides, and make a lot of photos. And I really loved Italy, I have to say. I'd go back. But yeah, I'd like to go back to France. I was there when I was a kid. I was there for, this is so depressing. I was there for a day and a half in
Oh,
2014 in Paris. It's all the time we had. We took the
wow.
high-speed train from Milan to Paris, and my brother met his family who'd gone on to Portugal because they didn't want to go to Italy. And we had a day and a half, and then we had to fly back the next day. That's almost, yeah, that's almost criminal. But I'd go back to Paris, and I'd love to ride my bike in France. Um, and I love New York. I have to say, New York City.
Yes.
My daughter lived in Brooklyn for several years, and I've been back many times. Now she lives in New Jersey, which has some beautiful bike riding and some beautiful countryside. It is the Garden State. Um, I never get tired of going back to New York City. It's a little iffy riding your bike in New York City, but
Yeah.
such a gas going there and doing that. And I'll go into there's a store that sells bike clothing at a coffee bar, and we'll get to talking. Where are you from? Blah blah blah. Oh, I'd love to come to LA.
Right.
Got all the great riding, and I'll say, yeah, but New York's so exciting. Yeah, but LA. So, and whereas I think, oh man, it's so exciting to go to New York. But places I haven't been, I would go. I mean, almost any place excites me. Am I going to go? I don't know at this point. But yeah, those places I mentioned, I'd love to go back to, and I'd love to get back to Britain. I've been there, Scotland, spent some time
Oh,
in
yeah.
Scotland. Yeah, I've been to Peru. I'd go back to probably almost any South American country. I'd love to get back to Peru. But yeah, I'm pretty happy photographing around LA and California. Uh,
There's a lot of opportunities in California. I mean, we there's just the wealth of different types of landscapes, and then you've got, just even the street photography right there in LA. I
but
mean,
yeah, yeah. There was some beautiful areas that burned in that huge Palisades fire.
yeah.
And there's one street in particular that is my go-to street when people come to LA and they want to see something different. I'll take them to Latimer Road in Rustic Canyon. It's really
Okay.
close to the ocean. It's just in the foothills, right there where Sunset Boulevard meets Pacific Coast Highway. And it was surrounded on three sides by fire. It didn't burn,
Oh
but it's
my
got
goodness.
this incredible canyon. This is
Wow.
Los Angeles. It has giant sequoia trees, gigantic ferns, incredible vegetation.
Oh
It's got a
wow.
creek. It's got insanely beautiful homes that date back to maybe the 20s and 30s.
Oh my
Uh,
goodness.
Beautiful wood homes. So it looks like you're back in Berkeley with beautiful architecture.
Yeah.
The modern stuff too, but it's an incredible street. And I'll take people there and they'll say things like, I've been to LA. This is the most beautiful street I've ever seen in LA. I really was worried about that going, but because it's in this deep canyon, it's cool in there, and the ocean must blow in some moisture. Somehow it didn't burn.
Somehow it
So
survived.
I'll go back there, but all around it burned. Yeah,
Wow.
fortunately, but that little jewel survived. So yeah, I'm happy to go back to places too that I know so well. Besides wanting to get a bucket list.
Right, right. So this has been fabulous, Dave. I really enjoyed our conversation. Do you
Oh,
want to
thanks. I did too.
tell everyone how they can reach out to you if they want to follow your photographs, if they want to sign up for one of your outings? Do you have upcoming outings that you want that
I do
still
actually.
have
I have
space?
not. Yeah, I haven't put them online. We have lots of space, so we have. I think it's going to be like a Sunday through a Wednesday in May. It'll be the Central Coast of California. So there's things I mentioned before:
Yeah,
elephant seals, architecture, the coast, the mountains, and then again in October, that trip to the east side of the Sierra, and possibly Taos in September. I put that together again this year. Yeah.
yeah, Taos in September would be fabulous.
Yeah, it's a great time to go. It's a great time. They have their feast day.
I was
Can't make
gonna
photographs,
ask,
but it's
yeah.
really cool. Yeah, people are really nice. In fact, I might add one person people can really take a look at. You can maybe add it to what you're putting down for this video. Geraint Smith is a local photographer in Taos by way of Great Britain. Phenomenal photographer. Find him online. He's awesome. You'll want to go to Taos when you see his
Great Smith is his name?
Geraint, like Geraint.
Geraint. Okay.
Geraint Smith, former resident of Pasadena. I think he was the official photographer for the city, and he kept visiting Taos until he finally thought, why don't I just move to Taos? So he's
Yeah.
got a gallery up in the some little tiny village up in the hills above Taos. Really nice guy, and it's been very nice to me when I've gone. Yeah, I just cold called him one time before a trip and said, "Hey, I'm looking for a knowledgeable photographer. Would you mind having dinner with us one night when
Right.
our group comes?" And so we've been really good friends ever since then. Uh, yeah, I can recommend looking at his work. But you can find me at davewyman.com, DAVEWYMAN.com. I'm on Instagram as Dave Wyman, one long word. I'm the Dave Wyman that has a bicycle outfit on with a big bell tower above his head. And Facebook, I'm Dave Wyman Photo, I think.
And
Yeah.
then Image Quest, I know, is one of your. If you,
ImageQuest, you can go to imagequest.com. You can go to davewyman.com. I've got a whole bunch of places that point to that, but davewyman.com or IQ Tours,
yes,
IQ
IQ
Tours,
Tours.
that'll get .com will get you there. But those showcase the trips that I run.
And
You can sign up on the
$500
page.
is like
I know it's
you haven't changed that price forever, which is fabulous. So I think
no,
it is
I
a
haven't,
really great opportunity for people
man.
because it does open the door for new photographers. Um, anyone that's just because to me, I just personally I feel like everyone has like a creative seed inside of them. It just sometimes needs to be brought
Right.
out and
That's a good way to put it.
you gotta bring it out and play with it and just have fun.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh no, I'm going to raise my prices, but not much. So
All
yeah.
right.
Everything else has gone up. I have to tell you about Barstow, though. Man, if you go to Barstow, they have nice restaurants there. Compared to LA prices, you get double the amount of food at half the price of what you pay for a similar meal at LA. LA is a very expensive town. That's one issue. It's a great town to make photographs or ride your bike or go to the beach or hike in the mountains, but it's expensive. And places in the rest of the U.S. that aren't great big major cities, they aren't so expensive.
Yeah.
So
And that's
Barstow,
another reason to get off the back roads too, these small towns.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. All right.
All right. Thank you so much, Dave. I'll
Thank
include
you.
your website again, davewyman.com or any of the other websites in the
That'll
show
do.
notes. And thank you again for your time today, David. It's been fabulous.
All right. Bye bye.